What is up, everybody? My name is Kevin, and today we're going to be doing a Spider Man movie ranking. I'm really excited to talk about some of these movies, but first and foremost, before I unveil my list, comment down below what is your favorite Spider Man movie, and let me know if you disagree with my list at all. My list isn't the definitive list by any means, but I'm really excited to share my personal list. So, just so you know, some context. I grew up watching Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's movies, but I also really love the MCU, and that is really what I grew up with. And so when we share this, this is my personal list. I want to go movie by movie, starting off at the bottom here, but you could see it's a pretty even mix between all sorts of these movies. But if we wanted to start off at the worst of the worst, let's start off at Amazing Spider-Man 2. And let me fix this orientation here. Amazing Spider-Man 2. It definitely comes in last here out of all these movies. There's just unfortunately so many great parts about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but in this movie in particular, there's just too many ideas, too many cooks in the kitchen, and it really brings this movie down overall. Just looking at this photo right now, you see Spider-Man in this really sick suit, really just going against Electro. And I'm gonna share my screen here just so we can see how Electro looks in this movie. You cannot tell me that this is not a sick photo right here. This is really cool. Even though Electro does not look comic accurate by any means, he looks awesome in this movie. I really like Jamie Foxx's performance as Electro for at least like the first half of this movie. I think when he starts getting attached to the Green Goblin, then this movie really starts going downhill. But I really think it comes down to Green Goblin's performance in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2, I mean, what can be said about this guy? First and foremost, this guy looks like a Timu version of Green Goblin. I cannot believe that they chose Green Goblin to look like this, if I'm being honest with you. He looks awful in this movie. And I think they rush his character arc in this movie just to shoehorn him in as a villain. They realistically could have just had Electro be the main villain here, and I thought his story was pretty compelling. But you have to have Harry Osborn be introduced in this movie, and then you have to introduce him to Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, and they're almost estranged. They haven't seen each other in a while. And then you see his whole fall to darkness in one movie, and then you see him become Green Goblin in this movie too. In the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, it takes Harry Osborn the full like trilogy to become Green Goblin to this point. So it's just insane that they rushed that entire character arc in one movie. It obviously doesn't work here. I think there's a lot of moments that are just so great in this movie. I think of Emma Stone in Amazing Spider-Man 2 and her relationship with Andrew Garfield. It is just so. I honestly just love her performance in this. Especially when Andrew is dealing with just like grappling the death of her father, and the promise that he made to her dad. I think that is the best part of this movie. Their relationship, it's so believable in this movie. But there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. It's pretty boring for most of the runtime. I love the fighting sequences between Electro and Spider-Man, and especially when he develops the technology at the end to fight Electro. And I'm gonna say, like, the last hour of this movie is actually pretty good. It's just everything before. I mean, I think of Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker in this movie as like Indiana Jones or like National Treasure when he's discovering where the dad went, and his like secret laboratory. I think it's slightly goofy, and especially when we end up seeing Aunt May where she's having all the job issues. I think it's a little too much. Again, too many cooks in the kitchen. Amazing Spider-Man two movies, they're just hindered by either bad performances or just bad plot directions. But Andrew Garfield is such a good Spider-Man, and it sucks to see him like this because honestly, like it is just so nice to see him as Spider-Man. I think he's probably one of my favorite Spider-Men of all time. So unfortunate. Next, we have Spider-Man 3. And let me just say, Spider-Man 3, I don't even know where to begin with Spider-Man 3. This is definitely like one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, the first two movies in this trilogy were campy, but this movie took it to a whole new direction. I'm sorry that I'm going to advertise one of my other videos here, but you definitely should check out How to Fix Spider-Man 3. I went and did a deep dive of how to fix this movie, but again, this kind of is along the lines of Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they both have the same problems. They have too many cooks in the kitchen, first and foremost. I mean, corporate got into this movie and really tried to get their hands on it by inputting Venom in. And I really think Venom should have been the villain of Spider-Man 4. You really could have just done Harry as like Green Goblin and Sandman, and it really would have made their characters a lot more enjoyable or fleshed out compared to what we get here, where it's just grappling between these three villains. There's too much going on. But overall, there's a lot to like about this movie. There's just too many issues with Venom in this movie, and I mean the whole thing with Eddie Brock too, where he was just preying on Peter's downfall throughout the entire movie. There's just a lot wrong with this movie. I do find it enjoyable because of its campiness, and I just love Tobey Maguire's trilogy. If I'm being honest with you, but again, there's so much that I would fix about this trilogy. This third movie in particular, and when I look at it like on its merits and after the most recent rewatch, I remember it being a lot better, but it's just too convoluted with Gwen Stacy and everything like that. So if there wasn't too many cooks in the kitchen, I think it would be probably like mid tier of this list. On its own though, I think it's a lot more of an entertaining movie than Amazing Spider-Man 2, so I definitely have to put it up there. Next, we have Far From Home. And let me just say, Far From Home, there's some issues with this movie. I mean, we've gone into detail about Tom Holland's trilogy and how he had an over reliance on Stark technology to really push himself forward. But the issue is with this whole movie here is that he is not in New York for pretty much most of the movie. He is only in Europe. And I think that's kind of an interesting decision or path to take with Tom Holland Spider-Man, especially since we took him to Washington, D.C. in the previous movie. But I really like Mysterio as a villain here. I think compared to Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, which are ranked lower, I think Mysterio is definitely the best out of all of them. I understand the criticisms that he is really more of a Tony Stark villain, like Vulture was in Spider-Man Homecoming, compared to an actual Spider-Man villain, considering he really had no beef with Spider-Man, I would say. But this movie overall, it was a lot of fun. I think it has like good hijinks, it just exploring Europe. And I think the ending fight where he has to fight Mysterio is really cool. Especially all the dream kind of sequences with Mysterio in this movie are really cool. And I do think this is probably one of the most emotional movies that Tom Holland Spider-Man actually had, where he was grieving the loss of Tony Stark. So there's a lot to like about this movie, but again, there's a lot of weird plot decisions made in this movie that really brings it down for me because it really isn't a Spider-Man movie by any means, but it's definitely a lot more entertaining than Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I think there's a lot of just like good character moments, especially between Peter Parker and MJ and Mysterio. And I think the ending was a top tier Spider-Man ending of all time, if I'm being honest with you, which might be a hot take. Next, we have The Amazing Spider-Man. And I think what's important to know about The Amazing Spider-Man, I grew up having the lizard toy. I don't know if you guys knew this, but what can I say about Amazing Spider-Man 1? There's a lot to like about Amazing Spider-Man 1, especially Andrew Garfield. What I really liked about this movie is that he really spends a lot of time in high school, and you see his relationship dynamics with just like high school bullies and everything like that. That is a really cool aspect to Peter Parker that I find him very relatable, to be honest with you. But when we look at this as like an overall movie, this is another origin story for Peter Parker. And what is unfortunate about it is that there is already an origin story for Peter Parker in Spider-Man 1, which I think is one of the best comic book movies of all time. And so when I'm thinking about Spider-Man and I want to see his origin story, I'm gonna watch that one instead of this one personally, which that's just like my personal taste. I think it's an interesting direction that they kind of went for like an ultra realistic Spider-Man here, which I think that's a pretty cool thing in line of like the Dark Knight trilogy that Christopher Nolan made for Batman. I think it's a very similar vibe that you get from both of these movies. But when I look at objectively, like comparing this to other Spider-Man movies, I think there's multiple Spider-Man movies that do what this movie's trying to do a lot better, and so unfortunately it has to go down for me on this list. But again, Andrew Garfield is so likable. I like his dynamic with just like the rest of the characters, especially Emma Stone. But at the end of the day, like I don't really remember Lizard that much. I don't think of him being like an S tier villain. And in this movie, I feel like you kind of needed an S tier villain, which it kind of sucks. But okay, so next up we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I this is one of those movies where I'm like, I think I'm maybe wrong about my judgment here because everyone claims that this is one of the best animated movies of all time. And you know what? Like, I think the animation style of these movies are insane, literally insane. But there's just so much like I don't really enjoy about this movie. The first and foremost, like the cliffhanger ending, it doesn't age well because we haven't gotten the ending to this trilogy yet. And it just almost felt like when I think of trilogies as a whole, the best trilogies of all time, each movie can stand on its own. I think of like Star Wars, right? A New Hope can stand on its own. Empire Strikes Back can stand on its own. Return of the Jedi can stand on its own. I can watch any of those movies out of order and I would absolutely love what's going on. Of course, each one builds on top of the other one. But if you're going to make an amazing trilogy or just make a sequel, I feel like you need enough inside of the movie itself to actually warrant it actually being a movie. In this case, I think of Across the Spider-Verse as a setup movie to Beyond the Spider-Verse. I don't know if there was enough here to actually pad out a 2.5 hour runtime. I think there's a lot of great moments and a lot of good just like themes in this movie that I really enjoy. I think this movie would have been a lot higher if there actually is stuff that culminates at the end. But no, it doesn't. It just sets up the next movie. And so I think that's like what the biggest disappointment is. And the fact that we actually haven't gotten an answer to any of these questions yet, it just really sucks. I think we're supposed to get Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. But looking at this, right, I love Miles and Gwen's relationship in this one. And when he comes to the realization that his dad is going to die, that is just a fantastic plot twist, honestly, and that he is an anomaly. But overall, there's so much I wanted to see from this movie, and I'm just so disappointed and kind of sick of people claiming that this is one of the best Spider-Man movie when I definitely don't think it is. I think the other variants of Spider-Man that they introduced in this movie don't even touch like the Into the Spider-Verse variants that they introduce, and just like it's not even comparable. I don't think they're as likable or as interesting as the Into the Spider-Verse variants, and so for that reason, it definitely is a little bit lower for me, which kind of sucks. Next, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. And I think this is where people are like, what the hell are you talking about? They're probably like, well, yeah, what the hell are you talking about? I just think there's so much to love in this first movie for Tom Holland. Again, I love personally when Spider-Man is in high school, dealing with the character dynamics of bullying and just how his class reacts to him. And Peter Parker, by no means in this, is really getting bullied. He's just like that awkward guy. And I think Tom Holland embodies Peter Parker so well in this movie. And I understand the criticisms that, you know, Iron Man, he gave him the suit and he was super reliant on the suit. But there's so many great moments in this movie. I think of the prom scene where he goes in the car with Michael Keaton's The Vulture, which goes into my next point. I love Michael Keaton's The Vulture, especially his performance in this movie. I think he's a lot of fun as a villain. But there's just so much to like about this. I think of like the fairy scene where he's pulling it together. I just love that he is trying to learn how to be Spider-Man and even overcome the challenges of this suit that was given to him. I think this was like at the height of the MCU. It is just a lot of fun, and maybe nostalgia blinds it for me. but it is a lot of fun, and it definitely is more of a Spider-Man movie compared to the ones below. I think I can go back and forth between this and like Across the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man The Amazing Spider-Man. Those movies are all like 4 stars for me, but personally, or 3.5 stars for me. But man, there's just so much to like about this movie. Next up, we have Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is where the new Spider-Man movie falls in line here because, listen, I was slightly disappointed by Spider-Man Brand New Day. I think looking at it now, where everyone is claiming that this is the best Spider-Man movie, or at least Tom Holland's best, I don't think this is Tom Holland's best Spider-Man movie, if I'm being honest with you. I do really love aspects of this movie, and this movie probably could have been my favorite if there just wasn't one or two things that are holding me back. The inclusion of the Hulk in this movie, I'm just kind of sick and tired of seeing the Hulk get defeated almost the same exact way every single time in all of these Marvel movies. And on top of that, I really dislike just like pushing the agenda forward of the X-Men and just hijacking this movie to introduce Jean Grey and Sadie Sink's character. It is just, I understand. I go over this in my review. Please check out my review. But man, it just, I don't understand what the point is of introducing a project 3 years down the line. I'm okay with introducing like one of these characters and almost having like a haha blink and you miss moment. But Jean Grey, she's usually a hero in comics outside the Dark Phoenix storyline, of course. But man, like she is an Avengers X-Men level threat, and we have her as the villain here. I have a tough time knowing, like, hey, I know Jean Grey's already the villain going into this, but I know that she's gonna easily like get defeated at the end because she usually is a hero. And they kind of did like a derivative ending of the Thunderbolts, so that's what brings it down for me. But overall, like, I love Tom Holland's fighting in this, especially the hand sequence. And I just love him swinging around New York City. This is probably the most grounded of his movies, which is crazy to say since he's fighting an X-Men villain. But please give us Venom next movie, and please just have him be in New York City. Give us everything that was already in this movie. Just give us a Spider-Man villain. They're so close to figuring out Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and if they do, he's gonna have one of the best movies. It's just so unfortunate that we have not figured it out. Next up, we have Spider-Man 1, the first of Tobey Maguire's trilogy. And let me just say this, I love this movie. This is like the bona fide Spider-Man origin story for me. I love how Tobey Maguire, he's so weird in this movie, and I don't think he's a great representation of Peter Parker at all. But this is like the perfect origin story. I love everything with Uncle Ben, and especially the whole dynamic between him and William Defoe's Green Goblin. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable villain. The action is awesome in this movie as well. The Thanksgiving sequence when Green Goblin finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, that is great. And I do think in this movie in particular, his dynamic with MJ was good. I don't think it's as good in Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3, which we'll hop into Spider-Man 2 later. But man, there's just so much to love about this movie in particular. I just keep going back to this one as being one of my favorites. I think when we get to this top three, or at least like the top two, any of these can be my favorites, but this one in particular, I rewatched this one a lot. So if you're into this movie, comment down below because I know there's some people that love this movie and it might be their number one. Okay, next up we have Spider-Man No Way Home, which, guys, some people are gonna be mad. Some people are gonna be like, all of your criticisms about Spider-Man Brand New Day, it doesn't make sense. It's hypocritical. I love Spider-Man No Way Home. This was probably one of the best theater experiences I've had. I probably watched this 2 or 3 times in the movie theaters. But let's get into what's so great about this movie. Spider-Man No Way Home. When you think about the emotional moments of Spider-Man No Way Home, and especially Spider-Man Brand New Day, they will have flashback sequences in Spider-Man Brand New Day of Spider-Man No Way Home. The emotional moments in Spider-Man Brand New Day are a result of this movie when Ned and MJ have to forget who Peter Parker is. And that is just such a great emotional part of this movie. Thematically, that is such a great theme. He actually has to take accountability for his actions. He thought it would be a good idea to pretty much take it the easy way and he had to face the punishment for that. That everyone had to forget him. I think Aunt May dying was just a really good twist because you wouldn't have expected her to die, almost partake in that Uncle Ben role for this Peter Parker in particular. I do think there's some things that leave this from being like a 5 out of 5 movie or probably number one for me. I just love seeing all these classic Spider-Man villains come in, and it also builds on these characters. William Dafoe, Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus, Alfred Molina's Doctor Octopus. I just love these characters. Even Jamie Foxx's Electro is so great in this movie. I love the dynamics with between him, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield. There's just so much to love about this movie, so many iconic scenes. And even though it's fan servicey, this is a fan servicey movie at heart, but I absolutely love it. And it's definitely one of those movies where I'm like, wow, I love Tom Holland Spider-Man. There's so much to love about him, especially when he's with the other Spider-Man. And I hope they bring it back, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in the near future. Next, we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And this is one of those movies where, based off a rewatch in the last couple days, this went up tremendously. And I completely underrated this movie. Every variant of Spider Man in this photo is just so fantastic. They're so lovable. I mean, Peter Parker, he might be my favorite because he's just so entertaining. And even Gwen, I mean, Gwen, Gwen, if you're trying to, Anyways, let's keep going forward. I absolutely love this movie. Everything about it. The animation style is perfect. I love Miles Morales' backstory and even just like his dynamic with the almost like dad bod Peter Parker. I forget what his name was. But man, everyone in this show is fantastic. Spider Noir is also fantastic. I just think Bonafide, like this is definitely one of the best Spider-Man movies we have gotten. I think this goes back and forth between number one or number two, but I cannot disagree that this is one of the best superhero movies of all time. But personally, for me, I'm not gonna even go back to the list here. But Spider-Man 2 is my bona fide best Spider-Man movie of all time. There's just so much to love about this movie. In particular, I love the train sequence. That is definitely one of the best Spider-Man scenes ever put in live action. And I just love how New York, they rally behind Spider-Man. They love Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And I just love the relationship between him and Dr. Octopus and how he is just kind of like a misguided villain. He really is not supposed to be a villain, but the arms are controlling him. The octopus arms are controlling him. And it is just so sad seeing Dr. Octopus's wife, Alfred Molina's life, getting killed by like his misjudgment and his ego wanting to keep this machine running. This movie is just fantastic. I think the only thing that maybe keeps it back from me a little bit is Peter's relationship with MJ in this one is just a little tough, to be honest with you. I think it's really meme to death. And I think the writing is not great for Kristen Dunst's MJ. But man, I absolutely love this movie, and you really get to see the grapple and the thematic elements of should I be Peter Parker or should I be Spider-Man, and how to keep that balance. And you really see that Spider-Man in this one really becomes too infatuated with being Spider-Man, and that really destroys his life, to be honest with you. So I really love this movie. I probably rewatch it every year, and there's so much to love about all these Spider-Man movies. If you wanted to go to my letterbox, I have ratings for all of them, but I'm pretty sure I have Spider-Man 2 as a 4.5, and I also have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as a 4.5. I also have Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Brand New Day as 4 out of 5 stars. And I believe everything else is 3.5. Maybe Spider-Man 2 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 are 2 and 2.5 out of stars. But otherwise, if you want to follow my letterbox, here's my account. I try and post or at least watch a new movie every day. I have a list of all the new 2026 releases that I've watched this year, and I have a list of all the new movies or first time watches of 2026 that I have watched so far. So if you're into that sort of content, please consider subscribing to this channel or following me on Letterbox. But otherwise, my name is Kevin. I am a small content creator, so I'd appreciate if you subscribe if you made it this far into the video. And comment down below, again, what do you agree with on my list? and what do you disagree with, of course. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.